Yo, what's happening? It's Gareth, and welcome to this live stream, and welcome as well if you are watching this video on the replay. We have just had a power failure here in Guatemala, so I am using a new light which is making my face kind of shiny, and I had to close the windows here because it's also started to rain, and I really wanted to go live with this because it's a tool that's helped me so much, and I really can't wait to share it with everybody inside this community. If you are watching this video and you are not part of the Law of Attraction and the secret Facebook group, please jump in and join us here. We are a community of more than 120,000 lifestyle designers that are using tools and implementing routines and habits to be able to understand and get the law of attraction to work for us in our lives. So if you're not part of this group, go to livemoreperfectdays.com/group. That'll redirect you back to this Facebook group. And if you're not already a member, please jump in and join us here. What I wanted to share today was something that I have found so extremely valuable in my life, having only learned this probably about in the last year. And it's a 5-step framework to have really meaningful and important conversations with people regarding relationships. And so it's easy to remember by using this acronym. The 5 steps are easy to remember using this acronym. And this really is a process that I believe almost all of us should be going through and should be taught as a way to be able to navigate our intimate relationships. And so I'm going to talk through this, and just to give you a frame for most of you, most of these 5 steps are not going to be relatable to you if you're already in a long-term connection. There are definitely points number 2, 3, and 5 are things you may still want to go back and address in your current relationship, but it's really for people getting into a new connection. And so essentially it works like this. When you first engage with somebody new and you realize that there's a bit of energy between the two of you, you ask them if they are open to having a meaningful conversation. You can call it whatever you like. The acronym is RBDSM. RBDSM. And BDSM, as you may know, is an acronym. Is something that you can use to help remember this, but RBDSM is a really easy way to remember these 5 points and 5 steps that you go through when you first start connecting with somebody in a new relationship. And so it goes like this. I'm starting to connect with somebody new, and I say, hey Mary, I've really enjoyed the conversations we've had on Tinder. I'd like to meet you for a coffee, and maybe in the coffee you say, I'd like to have this RBDSM conversation with you. Are you open to it? And it's basically creating a framework around which we can engage. So the first point is the R, and essentially what happens is you speak first, explain what R means, you speak first, and then you open. The invitation is for the other person to speak into the same thing. So let me give you a sense of how it goes. So R stands for relationship status. So I'm at the coffee with Mary and I say, hey Mary, I want to unpack this with you. R is for relationship status, and my current relationship status is single. If it was single, I'm happen to be in a connection. I'm just using it as an example, but I'm single, and that's how I relate, or how I label myself at the moment. Your relationship status could be single, married, in an open relationship, walking the path of celibacy, meaning you're not connecting with anybody specifically and running physical energy. But you then invite Mary, Sarah, I can't remember who I was on a date with. You ask them to hear their relationship status. And Sarah says, I am in an open relationship. Okay, maybe you even ask what that means. What does open relating mean? Sarah may say something like, I'm in a long-term connection with somebody, but we've got agreements that we can relate outside of our, whatever it is, you're just opening the conversation so that both of you are on the same page related to the relationship status. So at the early stages of your connection, you're starting to become super clear with one another about where you are, that you don't end up on the 3rd date sort of half kissing someone and then you see they've got a wedding ring, like some awkward stuff like that, which can happen in relating if we don't go through this process of getting super clear about what the framework is for our relating. So R is relationship status, and you address those things first. B comes from the word boundaries, RB, so boundaries. And this is a conversation that relates to things that you're not prepared to do. So perhaps you are, the other person is in a monogamous container, they're married. And so their boundary might be, I'm happy to spend some time with you and keep on hanging out, but no physical intimacy, no kissing, holding hands, any of that sort of stuff. So you get to set a clear boundary about what would be a boundary for you in your new connection with this other person. And then you ask them the same. Sarah, what are your boundaries? At the moment, my boundaries are, maybe they could even be physical boundaries. If we were to connect intimately, maybe I need some protection. Whatever those things are, have a grown-up conversation about this stuff, because it really makes sense to get these things clear up front now, so the two of you are on a level playing field as you start to engage and move forward. So RBD. The next is desire. So you've spoken about your relationship status, you've spoken about any potential boundaries, and you've invited the other person to share any boundaries that they have with you. And now you speak into your desires. And this is really something that seems to make so much sense, but has probably plagued me quite a bit, because it's not something that we've been taught to do, and that's to be able to own our desires, to be able to say, Sarah, I've loved the last few weeks of hanging out together, and my desire would be to be intimate with you, or to spend more time getting to know you and maybe moving to another level. But really being able to speak into what your desires for this connection are is a really important step. So once I've been through my desires and spoken to this new partner and told them this is what it is that I desire, I invite them to do the same. Sarah, what are your desires? Listen, I'm in an open relationship with my partner, and my desires are to connect for friendship and conversation, or whatever else her desires are. And you meet at that place and listen to the other person's desires and ask additional questions to make 100% sure that you're clear and that you've understood what the other person has said. So R, relationship status; B for boundaries; D for desires; RBDS. S, sexual health. What is the sexual health status? If your connection looks like it might be going towards intimacy, it's a really good idea to have this grown up and somewhat, it ends up being a difficult conversation to have at the last minute, because for me, navigating most of my intimate connections up until this point, until I learned this framework, was go out with somebody, see what happens, see if I get a bit of a vibe back, see if I get a bit of a vibe with them. I haven't heard them talking about a partner, they're not wearing a wedding ring, there feels like some energy, go for the kiss, maybe that's cool, end up back somewhere and then at the last moment you're like we could very easily make this entire process a lot smoother by being a little bit grown up and having these conversations up front. So sexual health status sounds something like this. I've been tested 6 months ago. I was clear for the following things. Name the things that you were tested for, and that you're clear, and that you've had X number of partners in between, and whether your intimate connections have been protected or unprotected. And just have that conversation with the other person. It really creates a safe space to be able to know where you are. And obviously this piece is only relevant if the conversation is moving towards an intimate connection. So that's RBDS. The last one is, I think, one of the most important, and that is meaning. What is the meaning of this connection? You're sitting having coffee with somebody, it's your second or third date, and you say, what is the meaning for me? The meaning for me might be, I'm really looking to spend a bit more time with you and get to know you at a deeper level, so that in the future I am looking for my long-term partner and potential wife. So that's meaning for me. That's what I'm looking for. The other person might say, thank you. Meaning for me is I'm just looking for someone to do Netflix and chill with. I'm just looking for intimacy. I'm looking for a one-night stand. I'm looking for someone to have conversations with or intellectually strategize about things. But once you become clear on the meaning of what these connection might look like for each of you, it becomes so much easier to move forward and to engage with one another going forward. So meaning was something that I was never really able to own. And that's why I say this last part is so important, because when I say I wasn't able to own meaning, there was a part of me that somehow felt owning my desires and attaching meaning, like saying something like, look, all I'm looking for is a intimate connection for the next little while, but I don't want a long-term girlfriend, and I don't want to be exclusive with you, or whatever those particular desires and meanings were. For some reason, I wasn't ever able to own them. And so it would always be this conversation, something like, yeah, I don't really know how I feel about this at the moment. Instead of being completely honest with somebody and being able to own my desires and articulate the meaning of this connection to the other person, it made my relating and my connections quite difficult and quite, I guess they were just messy. They weren't simple. They were complicated. There was this sometimes energetic knot where we didn't quite know where we stood with each other. And Having this framework of the 5 pieces, RBDSM, and being able to go through those up front really gives you and your partner a real clear framework around how you want to relate with one another. You know exactly what the other person's desires are, you know what their boundaries are, and you name what your intentions are. What is the meaning? So I really encourage you, if you are getting into a new connection. I've had some people reach out to me directly and they've told me some of their relationship hassles that they're having, and as they've articulated those, I've been very clear that they haven't gone through the process with their current partner to articulate meaning. I'll give you an example. Someone said to me, my long-term boyfriend, him and I are not connecting so closely anymore. It feels like the fire's gone out, but I'm texting this new guy, and there was just no clear conversation between the new person and the current boyfriend of this person that I was talking to. And I was already just like, I need to go live and share this framework. So if anybody is in a space of getting into a new connection, go through these 5 steps and have the grown-up conversation that most of us never got told how to do, and we never were given these tools to be able to go through this in a relationship. And as a result, a lot of our intimate connections can get super messy because we haven't, for example, taken the time to define the meaning of the connection, and the 2 parties have different expectations of what the meaning is. So take these 5 steps. R is for relationship status. B is for boundaries. What are the things you don't want to do? RBD. D is for desires, owning your desires. What is it that I want? What is it that I'm looking for from you? And then you ask the other person, what are you looking for from me in this connection? S, your sexual health status. Talk about it. Be grown up about it. Be honest about it. And own what your desires are there. This is my desire. Please, if we're going to be intimate, can we use the following protection or have the following agreements? Be clear on those. And M, the last one, is meaning. What is the meaning of this connection for you? This is what the meaning is for me. So these 5 steps are ready for a new connection. And what I want to talk into was points number 2, 3, and 4 for longer term connections. If you've been in a long-term connection for a while and you haven't taken the time to, hopefully you've spoken about meaning and you're not just in some long-term connection where nobody's quite spoken about the elephant in the room, or you haven't quite articulated exactly what your meaning is. And it's not uncommon, let me just say this, to be somehow swept up in a romantic connection and suddenly you're a few months in and you're like, whoa, I'm not so sure that I really know what the meaning of this is for me, or that I know what the meaning of this is for the other person. So meaning is definitely one of the points that you could bring into an existing connection and find deep value by having this conversation. The other 2 are boundaries and desires. Our laptop just woke up. Don't trust. Boundaries and desires. Even if you've been in an existing connection for a while, what are your boundaries? Have you taken the time to say to the other person, what are things that you don't want to be doing? They could be physical boundaries, but they could also be energetic boundaries. I don't want to do these things. I don't want to be called this. I don't want to be referred to like this. What are those boundaries? To be able to really own them and speak into them. And this might be a conversation worth having with an existing connection. And the last one is desires. For many of us, we are navigating our intimate connections by almost blindfolded. We go into a place where we just assume that we know what the other person wants. After a certain amount of time, there becomes a rhythm. Sometimes we speak about it, sometimes we don't. But to be able to have an open and honest conversation about what our desires are, whether they're intimate or just our desires of things that we want from the connection, can be a really, really meaningful exploration to go on with an existing partner. So I hope that you find that useful. This would have saved me so much pain, so much heartache, and so much awkwardness if I had been able to move with authenticity through these 5 steps before I started relating to people. And everybody that uses this RBDSM framework raves about it. And the people that they have the conversation with love it as well, because it makes them feel safe. Suddenly they're like, I've never had a conversation like this. And everyone's starting to feel safe and grown up, and suddenly you've got a frame for relating that just creates a really engaging place to build a strong relationship from. So I hope that you find this tool useful. If you've used anything like this before, please let me know in the comments below. And if you're in this place where you feel like this might be a useful tool for you to use, please let me know in the comments as well, and share it with somebody that you think might be in a new connection or might be in a sticky connection with someone, and you think, wow, if they went through these 5 steps, it would probably clear a lot of baggage out of this potential connection and be able to help them move in authenticity and really build a relationship that lasts. So I hope that's good. I hope you're good. I hope the power comes back soon, or it won't. That's what happens in Guatemala. Much love. See you next time. Ciao.